Welcome back to It's Life Loudly.
Where life is messy, imperfect, and worth sharing.
We're Dalton and Kristen Steichen, and we are excited to share stories and our experiences.
Ones that might inspire, motivate, and hopefully make you laugh.
We are not experts on this thing called life.
We're just here chatting about it.
It's life
loudly.
Hello, everyone. We have a special episode today. We are here with Kacie, and she is going to help me share. Some people have asked some things more about adoption and foster care, and so I decided to bring in an expert. Welcome.
Thanks. I am no expert in this area.
If those of you that don't know, if you remember back from our very first episode, if you haven't listened to the first episode, this is actually probably a good prequel for the first episode. Kacie and her husband Eric were our daughter's foster parents before they lived with us. So she knows all of the things about the journey of being a foster parent and how all of that works. And she's seen the whole thing full circle from beginning to end and has a great success story. Some foster parents don't get that. So that's exciting. But we start our episodes off, she knows, she's listened before, with our joys and hards for the week. So do you have anything super joyful or super hard that you want to share with us about your week so far?
Ooh, good question. I would say, I think my joy and my heart is the same thing. We just started calving season, which is fun, but crazy and wild and tiring and good all at the same time. So I love this time of year where I get to be out in the barn with the cows. That's kind of my happy place. So that's my joy, but that's also my hard because our life shifts and our days are very unpredictable. And I don't know when I get up in the morning, like, what's my day going to look like today? I have no idea. And I am a planner.
Yeah.
And so I don't love that, but I do love the season. But hand in hand in that season is fun and good things and busy, but also hard shift of life.
I was going to say the same thing, that I'm seeing more and more in the last week and a half, more signs of real spring. Like, I don't know if it's false or fake yet. Might be a little early, but it's like, yes, the warmer weather, the melting of the snow, the different seasons starting. I was going to say that was my joy too, just the changing. I'm always ready for a season to change. And my hard, and my joy is that we went to, did I talk about it the last time? I don't know. When did we go to the movie? We just went to a really great movie, and a whole crew of us went out for supper and went to the movie afterwards. I Can Only Imagine 2. If you haven't seen the first one, watch the first one and then go watch the second one.
Yeah, it was so good.
I thought it was,
that's a joy.
I actually thought the second one was better.
Yeah.
I think it had more of the first one was good, but usually the sequel is never better. So I thought it was better.
Mm-hmm.
So
I agree.
It was fun. We just all left our kids and all went and had an adult date night, and it was fabulous. So that was also my joy. I don't know if I really have a hard, not particularly. People in my house have been still sick and stuffed up. Dalton hasn't felt great. And I'm just like, I'm ready for all that. Like, Beckon didn't have preschool today because, people still at school are sick and teachers are sick. And it's like, we can put all that behind us.
Yeah, another reason for spring.
Yes.
Let's get outside.
Get the fresh air. Yeah. Yeah. So my first question for you is, why did you guys decide to be foster parents in the first place? How did you come to that, like, we're going to do this?
It was a journey, and actually we didn't want to, neither of us. So that was our first, it was really a long road of like back and forth in both of us. So at first, I'm trying to remember when, it would have been sometime, I think in 2015. I felt like God had something next for us. Our kids were really little. And
little.
Yes. And I just kind of felt like there was something, not that we were going to have another baby, but that maybe there was something different. I didn't know what that was, but I knew that there was an emotion in my heart and that it just kept like kind of bubbling up. And I would talk to Eric about it and he's like, nope, I don't feel that. No, I got nothing. And so then I would kind of go back and be like, well, God, I know that it's not going to just be a one of us thing.
Yeah.
This has to be a both of us thing. And I don't know that it was really like foster care ever that was on my radar then. And so I just kind of sat with that a while, prayed about it when I would think about it sometimes. And then a little bit later, Eric, that was kind of a whole series of events. We ended up, our neighbors were foster parents. So the wife had to be gone for something kind of out of the blue. So our neighbor was kind of single dadding it. So I had said like, oh, he should just come over for supper, bring the kids over and they can play with our kids and whatever. And after they left that night, Eric's like, I kind of think we could do this. I'm like, do what? And he's like, I don't
Host
know.
people for supper.
Like have other kids live in our house. And I was like, okay, like what does that look like? And so that kind of I think was what God used to kind of push Eric along maybe. And then so in that we started a journey of what's next and what does that look like. And foster care kept coming up in the top of the list. And we would just both say, nope, we know it's not that. So then we'd look at the next thing. And we actually talked to like a couple of different adoption agencies. Eric kept saying, I know we're supposed to meet a need. And we weren't really finding the need.
Yeah.
And then foster care would come up again. And we're like, no, but we for sure know that's not it. And then God would just bring it again back to the top of the list. And so eventually Eric had said, we both need to pray about this for 1 week. We can't talk to each other about it.
Yeah.
We can only talk to God about it for a whole week. So the week came and went. Eric came in the house and I was like, what are you thinking? And he said, we're supposed to do foster care. And I was like, oh, shoot. That's what I think too. I was hoping you had something different. So I remember
like oh gosh, if we're both the same, then
yeah.
Oh man.
And neither of us really felt like we could do it or that we wanted to do it. I remember praying about it and just asking God, like, why are you asking us to go down a road that's filled with so much heartache?
Was it your intention, because you said you had looked at adoption, was it your intention then, like, okay, we would potentially keep kids through foster care, or you didn't even know it at that point?
I think at that point we didn't even really know. We were just kind of open to, we need to meet a need.
Yeah.
We don't know what that looks like. Is our family complete? We don't know. We aren't. So I think we weren't ever set on adoption or adding kids permanently to our house. So when we started looking at the foster care journey and what that could look like, I had a lot of reservations because our kids were little.
Yeah.
And I remember telling God, like, you're asking us to do this, but what about my kids?
Yeah.
And I just remember feeling assured from God that, like, my kids are his and he cares just as much about them as he does all these other kids, and that this was going to be a family ministry and a family journey and that our kids were going to be okay. So that was kind of, it wasn't something that we were both like excited and on board to do. God got us to that point. And so then we had to start looking into, there are so many options in foster care.
Yes.
So we started kind of that journey, a little bit of seeking information. So we talked to that neighbor of ours that had done foster care for many years. We talked with them, got more maybe real life practical information. We were looking online and finding information from agencies and from different things. But we ultimately landed with going with an organization called PATH, which is a treatment foster care organization. We felt that offered a little more stability for our family, and we would have a better idea of what we were bringing into our home as far as like past issues, experiences, things that kids had been through, versus going through the county where you just kind of get kids. You're the first thing that they get coming out of a bad situation.
Yeah.
And we weren't really sure we could do that with really little kids well.
Yeah.
So we went with an organization called PATH. So we met with them talk to someone from there, which is the same organization our neighbors were with.
Yeah.
So that just seemed like a good fit for our
Did you just
crew.
make a phone call? Be like, hey, we're interested, or was there an online part you had to do first?
I really can't even remember because I remember having a conversation.
Or maybe your neighbor was like, here, call this person.
Yeah, I kind of think maybe that we initially talked to their social worker.
Yeah. Probably.
But I don't really remember. I remember when we talked to our neighbors about it, they were like, "You want to what?"
They're like, we know this. Like,
And-
we've lived this. We've been here for a long time. Like,
yes, and we are in a very different stage of life than
Oh,
them.
yeah.
And so yeah, they were, and I'm like, no, I mean, I don't know that we really want it. God's saying we're gonna do this and we're gonna figure it out. So that was, I don't really remember what that first conversation was like. I remember someone had to come to our house and meet with us, and they had to like do a home inspection, and they have to do all these things for you to become a foster parent.
oh, yeah.
And I'm like, well, I didn't have to do this to get my own kids.
yeah.
We just got home, went to the hospital, and they're like, all right, you're gonna be parents on your own,
Figure it out.
by yourselves. You're taking this baby home. So there was a lot of, we had to do those types of things, and then tons and tons of training.
I was going to say, because I was wondering if the adoption and foster care training is the same thing.
I think it is. It's that weekend.
Like, yeah,
that
it's
long
like the
weekend
long
training.
weekend. And then I remember going somewhere. I think that maybe we had to do, because I remember going to the office quite a bit, because like we had to do a lot of like compatibility tests, but they might not necessarily do that for foster parents. That might just be an adoption thing.
I do remember we had to do a little bit of that. We had to provide a lot of information even about our extended families.
Yeah.
We had to go through some questions about our past trauma.
Yeah.
And do our
Oh my
own
gosh,
ACE
those
scoring.
packets were long.
Yes.
Long.
I remember just sitting with stacks of papers
Yes.
to go through. And one of the things that I can really remember early on, because it made me think like, did we hear God right? Do we know what we're doing? Eric and I both really felt like if we were going to do foster care, we wanted to bring kids into our home that were either the same age or younger than our kids. We didn't want kids that were older than our kids, just because we felt like we've not even been there in the parenting journey ourselves with our own kids. What do we know about parenting kids that are older and in a different stage?
And at this time, you had a like 1-year-old and a 3-year-old.
Yep, our kids were 1 and 3, and so we were. So I remember telling the worker from PATH that, like, here's what we're thinking. And she's like, that's fine, but you're probably not going to get any placements. Most kids are school age, because that's when the issues are really found, is they get to school and then some red flags start to come up, like, maybe things aren't really great at home. And so she said, most of the kids that we get in are school age. We don't really have 3-year-olds coming in. And I said, we both feel like that's where we're supposed to be. And so they let us be okay. Like, they let us put that information down in our packet, but really, we really got the impression like they think that that's not going to be a need. And so then we went back to that second guessing of like, we're supposed to meet a need. Maybe we don't even know what we're doing. Maybe we can't even meet a need in foster care if we're not willing. And then, so do we say we can take kids older? But Eric and I both really felt like, no, we need to stick with that thought. And so that was right early when we had decided to do it. We started filling out the paperwork. We started doing all these things. We also had to fill out, so not only like the age of the kids, but like what you are okay with having a child in your home, what kind of experiences they've had. And sometimes they don't know, and sometimes they're already there, and then you find things out. But it is supposed to be kind of a way for them to find the best match for the kid and the family, so that you get a kid going into an environment where they can heal and they can move forward. So I remember filling out that paperwork and being like, I have no idea.
Oh gosh, yeah, we had to fill out the same thing of like, what are you willing to deal with, basically? Yes. And I was like, none of this.
Exactly. I'm like,
none of this.
what person would look at this list and be like, oh, yeah, we got that.
We got that under control. It's like, yeah, that was so hard because, like, when your own kids, you're like, well, I mean, if your own kids have some of these issues, you don't have a choice. You got to just,
Right.
there was so much choice in it, like, that it just felt weird.
Yeah. And for Eric and I think maybe we were a little naive, but we also didn't really know or understand in those early stages what some of those things looked like in real life.
Yeah.
I mean, on paper is one thing, real life another thing. So that was the beginning of it. We were kind of filled with some doubt, even when we knew that that's where God was putting us, and we said, okay, we're going to do it. But then even on that journey, we doubted, like, are we doing the right thing? Is this? And I kept going back and asking God about our own kids and about the things that we knew were going to be hard. And one thing I remember too is in like one of the many times that I went back to God with that and said, like, why a road that's so hard?
Yeah.
And I remember feeling like he was telling me to look past the hard. Like there was going to be so much good past the hard, but we were going to have to do the hard to get the good. And then I was like, I don't know if I want to go on that road.
I don't know. I want to bring everybody else on that road with me. Like,
right. So that was the beginning of the journey.
And were my kids your first placement? You had emergency. Did you have some emergency placements?
They were
Like-
the emergency placement. That they were our.
That was it. That was the first one.
I think they were our first one. Only. Actually, there maybe was another
because sometimes
one in there.
There's some people that do foster care for just a respite. That's the word I was looking for, not emergency placement, respite. Whereas like when you have foster kids living in your home, you can't just like go send them to grandma's overnight. You can't just like send them to a friend's. You can't like if like for some reason you need to be gone or you need to go somewhere else, like those kids have to go to another foster care,
another licensed
home. So I thought that maybe that's what you did first a little bit, is some respite care for.
So they
maybe
kind
not
of told us that maybe that's where we would fit the need because we probably wouldn't get any permanent placements that were that little.
Yeah.
And so we were like, oh, okay, that's fine. We could do that. So actually the girls were our very first, they were coming for a weekend. In the way that PATH works is it's treatment level foster care. So these kids go into foster care in their county.
Yep.
And so that's the first level of care. So there's homes in the counties that are set up that they can get a call at 3 a.m. and it's like, we have these kids, here's their ages. They're going to be at your house. And then they don't know if they're going to be there for the day or for days or weeks or what it's going to be. Because they're just really that first thing where all of the legal stuff is being figured out of what's going to happen with these kids. So PATH, so kids that are in PATH have to have some sort of a diagnosis, which I find very broad because any child that has been taken out of their home and what they know is in some severe level of trauma. And then from that, there's just so many things. So I feel like any kid could qualify for PATH just because of.
Well, and I think a lot of it too, they said PATH is a lot of sibling groups because they're at a higher risk of not being like found a placement for because
together.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of people who are like, we'll take one.
Yeah, we only have room for one. We only have a bedroom for one.
So sometimes
so siblings like automatically qualify because that just puts them in their own their own need category.
Yeah,
that's like a need category.
Need.
So there's many different types of needs or diagnosis in PATH. So the girls were placed in a home that happened to be a license, and they had some things going on in their house. And so the way it works in PATH is each kid does not have their own social worker like it would be in the county, but Eric and I had a social worker.
Yeah.
And no matter what kids we would have, we had the same worker all the time, regardless of the kids. So our worker had called me and said, we have these 2 little girls that need to come someplace for the weekend. We don't know what some things that are happening in their home right now that just need to get figured out. We need some time to do that, and they think that maybe not having the girls there for a little bit would be okay. So could you take them for the weekend? And so we were like, all right, here we go. Sure.
Buckle up.
So that was in the fall of 2016, fall of
Yeah.
2016. And so they came to our house just for the weekend. And that was an experience for us, for our kids. I'm sure for the girls, they probably knew we didn't know what we were doing.
Because you had 2 sets of twins.
Basically, that is so when they came to our house for the very first time, we had a biological 4-year-old and 2-year-old, and then the foster kids coming into our home were also 4 and 2. So it was
A mixed set.
a little wild that first, and it was busy on the farm. It was fall. That's a busy farm season. So Eric wasn't able to just be like, well, yeah, sure, we're going to have these girls and I'm just going to be home with you all
Yep.
day. It was like he's going doing his thing, and here I am with 4 kids, 4 and under. And like one of the very first things that happened is the youngest one. So she was 2. She was holding this little plastic Thomas the Train, and she was going down the last step into our playroom, and she fell with a train, and she hit her head on the train, and immediately there's just blood everywhere. And I was like, oh no, like this isn't even my child. I have already and the older one was kind of freaking out because there was lots of bleeding. Of course, there's crying and whatever. So that was like the very first experience where I was just like, oh my goodness, we don't know what we're doing. These are kids. They need so much more than what I can give them. I don't even know what they've been through. They're in a home. Now, I just thought of, for me, it was a lot of thinking of my own kids. Like, what if they just had to go spend a night with people that they didn't know in a house they didn't know?
And they were brought to you, right? The social worker brings them?
The social worker, it was a different worker. It was the other family social worker brought them to us. So I met her. It was pouring rain. We hauled the kids quick into our house. They gave us car seats because we needed more car seats if we were going to go anywhere. So we're undoing the car seats from her car, getting them into our house, getting the things that the kids had to spend the weekend.
Do they tell
with
you
us.
anything? Like when they call, do they say like their names, their ages, or do they say we just got 2 kids, they're coming tomorrow?
Yeah, that's kind of how it was mostly. They told us how old they were because they knew that was kind of an important thing for us with having our own kids in our home. I remember having to write their names down on a sticky note on my counter because I'm like, I'm not going to remember their names. And so we had their names written down on a sticky note. I remember, just trying to make them feel
even like,
at
what
home.
do you like to eat? Like, what
Exactly.
like,
They were
trying to-
little.
Yeah.
They were so little. And the older one, I mean, basically like made all the decisions for the younger one. So that actually did kind of help because she was a little bit older. But yes, I remember being like, are they scared at night to have it too dark in their room? Or like, what do I need to have in their room to make them feel safe? And yes, what do they like to eat? What time do they go to bed? What time do they get up in the morning? Like, what time does this 2-year-old nap? Does she nap? Like, I had no idea what we were doing. It did help that they were the same age as our own kids so that I could kind of gauge like ability and developmentally kind of where they would be and what they would like to do.
Yeah, you were well stocked with 2 and 4-year-old
Yes.
toys and activities, at least.
Yes.
Or TV shows or whatever. You had some frame of reference.
Yes. And so that was our first experience. It was one weekend, and I remember when they left our house, the worker again came to pick them up. They left our house to go home, back to their foster home. And I remember that night Eric said, it would be awesome if we could just get girls like that as a placement.
Yeah.
And I was like, do you know what it was like here for the weekend?
Like, were you here? Like, you weren't even here. You don't know.
Like, that was crazy. And it was fun. And our kids loved it. They loved the girls. But yeah, that was the first where I was just like, we have no idea what we're doing.
Gosh.
We don't know.
No, we can't have that.
Yes, we don't know how to parent our own kids. And then you give me someone else's kids and I have no idea what I'm doing. So that was the first experience. And then it was like maybe 2 weeks later, our social worker called and said,
And you had no placements in between.
nope. She called and said, those girls you had, they're looking for a permanent placement. Would you consider taking those girls as a permanent placement? And so, of course, we were like, yeah, we would consider that. And in my mind, I was like, this is going to be really, really wild. How are we going to do this? But like Eric and I knew for sure, absolutely 100%, like, yep, yes, they can come and they can live here as long as they need to live here. And so I think it was kind of neat how we had that little trial run with them.
Yeah.
So that we had a little glimpse into like what this would look like. But we had the day we went to get them, we went to the PATH office in Minot. We brought our kids with because we were like, oh, this will be better because they'll remember our kids. That'll maybe just make them feel more welcomed and excited. And we got there and I was
You
like,
were way wrong.
oh, no, that's actually not how this is going. It was very overwhelming for them to be moved again. There were lots of emotions.
Can you imagine?
No. And our kids were seeing that.
Yeah.
And then being like, whoa, like this is what it was for our kids. I think it was a glimpse into a reality they had no idea.
Later
existed.
on, didn't one of your kids ask you, like, I don't know which one it was, but we're like, when am I going to go? Or when am I going to go live somewhere else or go?
Yes.
Like,
so our daughter Marin, it was after the girls actually had been adopted and gone to your house.
Yeah.
And so she was 4. And so she asked me when at bedtime, like, well, when will I go to my forever home? And I was just like, what? So because
it was a big party. We had cake.
It was fabulous. It was great. And so I was like,
she's like, I want a party.
Yeah. I'm like, you're stuck with us.
Yeah.
This is as good as it gets for you. And so
that's so funny.
That was also eye-opening for Eric and I think as parents to be like, Marin was so little. She had just turned 2 when the girls came to live with us. So she did not remember life without them.
No.
They were just siblings for 2 years. And so for her then, she didn't remember how they came into our family. And all of a sudden they were being adopted and going to go live in this forever home with friends that we knew. And so for her, in her black and white world, then that's just what happens to everybody. Everybody just is in a family and then they get a forever family and then that's where they go. Where for Caden, so he was 6, he could remember, we had asked him then, like, do you remember what it was like before the girls came to live with us? And he said, no, but I remember the day they came.
Yeah.
And so he could remember that, but he couldn't really remember life, what it was like before they lived with us. But he could remember when they came, like he knew that piece of it. Where, Marin was so little, she didn't know. She didn't remember. They just always were.
Yeah. When do I get to get out of here?
I kind of like a forever home. Not this one.
And 2 years, do you think that's average? Did they ever tell you? Like, I mean, when you got them, they weren't like, hey, they're going to be here for a week, a day, whatever. You had no idea. And it ended up being 2 years. That's a long time.
It was a long time. I don't remember ever really having a conversation with them about time. I remember the whole system itself seemed very frustrating to me.
Yeah.
Because there are no times.
There's no guidelines.
So
really on.
I remember them telling us certain things like, well, there's a court date scheduled for this date. And so I'm like, okay, so what happens at that
Yeah.
What happens at that court case? Well, then the judge will decide, like, if we're still working toward reunification with the parents or if we're going to start going another direction. And I remember that the dates just always kept being extended.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it was supposed to be in April. Oh, now it's not in April. Oh, now it's going to be in July. And then July would come and it's like, oh, no, now it's going to be in October. And so I remember feeling very frustrated and wondering, well, firstly, wondering how long are these girls going to be in transition?
Yeah.
And then secondly, what does their future hold?
Yeah.
Like, are they going back home or are they going somewhere else? And so it was hard to not have that answer. But back to kind of one of your earlier questions of like, did we plan to adopt? Did we? The girls came to our house in September of 2016.
Yep.
And I remember there was something that happened in December where we had to take them to an appointment and different things had to happen. There was like some interviews and some things that was all a part of the legal process of the system of determining, like, are we still working toward reunification? Are we looking at terminating parental rights? What's happening?
Because that's the whole point of foster care is like you're removing the kids to give the parents a chance to be like, can you change, fix whatever X, Y, and Z?
Yep.
To get kids back, or nope, like rights are being taken, which is a case by case,
Yes. Thing. And I don't think there's any real cut and dry.
No.
So I remember having to go to this appointment in December, and I remember telling Eric before we went, because I was a little bit worried about it. I didn't know what was going to happen there. I didn't know how to prep. Especially the older one was really the one that they were going to have to like ask questions and interview. And I just felt like, man, okay, that's scary. She's going to be in this place where people are going to talk to her that she doesn't know. We aren't allowed to be in there. And so I was trying to, like, for the weeks leading up to it, like, to kind of like prep her for the experience, knowing it was going to be probably hard and a disaster, was what I was expecting. And so I remember telling Eric a couple nights before we went that the girls aren't ours.
Yeah.
And Eric's like, yep, we just have to be okay with what happens next for them. And I was like, you're okay with that? Like, I'm like, I'm not okay with that till I know what happens next. What is happening next with them?
And when?
And so I, Eric and I both knew in those first couple months that these girls weren't ours forever, and that we were the stepping stone to what was next. And so that was a little bit like a double emotion kind of. It was kind of freeing for me to be like,
I know that
this is my role specifically with them right now, that this isn't a forever role, but like my job is to help them be ready for what's next, whatever that is. But then also I remember every birthday and every holiday and everything that I would cry because I was like, these aren't ours to have with these girls. And whoever's going to have them next is missing all these like important things that you can't redo and you can't have back. And so for me, every time, like, that knowledge in my head brought two very different emotions for me. And I remember with all those court dates being moved and extended, and I remember telling God, like, why are you doing nothing? Nothing is happening. Like, nobody knows what's happening with these amazing girls that are just stuck in transition of a system that's in no hurry.
Yeah.
So I felt like they need to be where they're supposed to be.
And but God's really, God was, hang on.
Yeah. He's like, I got it.
He's like, I'm working on something else over here, but it's just taking a minute. So, like, you just got to just chill, Kacie. Just chill for a second.
Yeah.
Because it's so funny that, like, I signed up for the PATH info, whatever you want to call it, the info session in the fall of 2016. So, like,
the same time we got the girls.
And it took us, number one, it took us 2 years to be like licensed or certified to be
get
adoption parents.
All the paperwork, all the training.
So it's just like you had to keep them for 2 years, so all that could happen.
It all had to work itself out perfectly in that amount of time. Yeah. And it did. But in it, I felt like nothing was happening. Yeah, it was a weight.
I don't really remember. I remember like we were friends,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't really remember seeing you or going over to your house without them there. I don't really remember that. I don't think because
Mm-hmm.
we wouldn't have really become friends until at least 2015.
Yep.
So it wouldn't have been that long if you got them.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I remember for first couple times being at church with them, and we were like, we don't know what kind of kids we're gonna have, but we're not having that because your hands were full.
Yes, there was a lot of action, and there were a lot of things that we had to figure out with each other. Our own kids, we had a level of expectation of behavior of the things that you're going to do and the things that you're not going to do. And of course, no child is perfect regardless of environment and situation, but also discipline. We knew what we were doing for discipline. And then we got these two girls that, it was probably very much like they just were taken and placed in a foreign country practically because the environment of our house is different. Our rules were different. Our expectations of behavior were different. The consequences of behaviors were different. And so we had so much to figure out with each other. And I remember feeling the pressure, like I have my own 2-year-old watching me deal with parenting and disciplining a different 2-year-old who has the same rules as the other 2-year-old, but the expectations were very different because she was brand new in our home. She had never been held to these expectations and never been parented in this way. And so I remember thinking like, oh no, I hope my own 2-year-old doesn't start to do these things. Like we just went through so many like kind of naughty outbursts with them as they figured out what it looked like to live in our house.
Yeah.
So yes, in the beginning, I remember telling Eric one day when he came home after he'd been gone all day and had been home with the kids, and he's like, "How's it going here?" And I'm like, "I should just be wearing a black and white striped referee shirt because that is my job all day. I just referee kids fighting all day.
Yeah.
The 2-year-olds, no matter what one has, the other one wants it. And like, it doesn't even matter if we have two of the exact same thing. Then like that's the nature of a 2-year-old. And so I felt like that was my day, was refereeing and then trying to establish the pattern of choice and consequence with kids that had never experienced that before and didn't love it.
Yeah. Did any of your like extended family think you were crazy?
Yeah, they did. They did, I think we were crazy. They were, so most of our extended family on both sides, most like supported and were excited. Some were like, this is a terrible idea. You shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
Your own kids are going to suffer. So we did deal with a little bit of that. But we knew, like, it was so clear to us that like God's plan and we were being obedient. We knew that was our role, to be obedient. So my sisters, I remember them like giving us clothes because they have kids that are older than that, and so they were like, "What do you guys need? How can we help you?" I remember one of the first times that like we all got together, and my sisters were just like, "Oh my goodness, this is completely crazy. These girls are so amazing and so sweet, but how are you even like?" What is this? And I remember being like, it's fine. We're fine. And we joke that I really do think God kind of blinded us to the chaos just to make it so that it could all happen and we could do it. Because it's
like one of those things like you're like living on adrenaline pretty much like all the time. And then once you're out of that and actually have like a cleared head, you look back and you're like, how did we,
like, if that wasn't God's plan and he didn't just carry us, there's no way that we would have made it. Because it was good, but the real life portions of every day were messy.
Yeah. At any point where you like almost like we need to be done with this, or this is too hard, or something's wrong with our like it's affecting our kids too much. Like, we need to, this
Mhm.
might have to end before we fully see it through.
Yeah, there was I can remember like different joys and hearts of that whole time and certain like specific things of certain days. But I can't really remember like what it was really like every day.
Yeah.
But there's one memory that is so vivid because I can look back and I can see that as a marker in my own faith journey and also for our son's faith journey.
Yeah.
So there was a day that it was really, really, really hard. I was home with all 4 kids. It was in the spring of the year. Eric was in the field. The days were so long. And we were dealing with some really, really, really big things with the oldest. And it was hard. We were doing we had our social worker who we could rely on for guidance and suggestions, and we would meet with her. She had to see the kids twice a month. And so I would be able to visit with her, like, okay, here's some things that are happening. And so she could like help with suggestions or things for dealing with some of the
Mhm.
behaviors, or even helping me sometimes understand like what's the root of the behavior, like why is she doing this or what's happening. And then we were also meeting with a play therapist that specializes in doing therapy with young kids that have experienced trauma. And so that was like a huge tool for me. She would be able to help me like explain to me, this is what we're going to do for this week. This is the homework assignment for this week. Like, this is what I've told her is her job, and now this is what I'm telling you how you're going to help her accomplish that job. And so that helped me to learn a lot and to understand a lot, and it helped give me tools to be able to help the girls process through their past trauma and to heal and to grow. And so one day in particular, we were probably at the very climax of all of the really hard overcoming of trauma.
Yeah.
And it was not going well. And so there was a suggestion that week of a new way, a new concept. So the whole team kind of decides these things like, okay, when this
Yeah.
really big behavior happens, you have 2 2-year-olds in your house at that same time. Like, I can't be dealing with, I'm one adult, I can't be dealing with one behavior and then also keeping 2-year-olds in my sight and from doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so so I was implementing the consequence that we talked about as a team. It was not going well. And I remember sitting on the floor in our living room, and our son, he would have been just 5 then, and the girls were just 2. I'm sitting on the floor and I'm crying, and my 5-year-old son is there, and
That's crazy
the
because
2
I
little
have a
girls.
5-year-old that just doesn't see. Let's just, oh, that's so wild.
Yes. And so I was crying, and I asked our son Caden, sometimes is it just really hard to share us? Because I felt like all of my time and energy that day
Mhm.
was going into trying to mold and shape and provide consequence and all these things that this whole team
And
of
stay
people
steady and
have talked
stay
about, that this is
consistent.
what she needs when this is happening. And
Yeah.
I felt like I was failing, and it was just so hard. And I remember asking him when I was crying, and sometimes just really hard because I was starting to feel like maybe I don't have what it takes to do this.
Yeah.
Maybe we're just not the right parents to help with this. And Caden, in his 5-year-old wisdom, is like, Mom, she needs you.
Oh.
It's not hard to share you. She needs you. And I was just like, ugh. So that for me was like God as personally as he possibly
Yes.
could through my 5-year-old being like, you can do this.
Like,
Like,
you-
you're going to stick
you gotta.
with it, and there's no other option right now. And so also that very day, the foster parent neighbor man came over to randomly get something in our yard.
Yeah.
And so he saw all that was going on, and he just came to the door and he said, hang in there.
Yeah.
It's going to be all right. We've been there. You're making a difference.
Yeah.
And it's hard. but you have to do the hard. And so like that day I was just like, thanks God for like just encouraging and helping us. And I think that was probably one of the hardest days. And we made it through that day. And beyond that day, like there was progress. It wasn't easy progress.
No.
But I think too, if we want to see real change, we have to do real hard. And so we did real hard together, and there was real change and healing and growth and so many things that happened out of that. But yes, there were definitely moments in the journey where I'm like, we do not know what we're doing. And I think maybe somebody could do this better, that's more qualified, that has more tools, that has more resources. But that's not what God picked for us. So he gave us what we needed to make it through each day. We made a ton of mistakes. There were days that we would go to bed and I would be like, Eric, I hope none of the kids remember this day ever. Like this was a bad day. Like I'm like, I lost it. I was not at my best. I just wanted redo on today. So yeah, I often prayed that prayer at the end of the day, like, God, just please help all the kids to forget this day, and make it better tomorrow.
You gave them so many experiences that they would have never. I mean, they started school in your house, like camping and church, and probably some like camps or like things that they would have never. So a lot of firsts.
And the environment was completely different. So the farm, all the things on the farm were a huge first. I remember like one of the first days after they came actually to live at our house, we were sitting on our front steps. There's probably like some behavior things. I don't really remember. And we had like grain bins in our yard at that time, just right across our yard. And I remember the two oldest kids were sitting by me on the steps. And the oldest was like, what are those? And our son was like, you don't know what those are. And he's like, and so he just said, you've never been on a farm before, have you? And she was like, no. And so he was explaining to her, like, those are grain bins. Like, that's what you put the grain in. And she's like, what's grain? And he's like,
oh,
you have so much to learn. And so so when they came, it was the fall and it was busy. It was harvest. And so I remember us going out and like riding in the combine. All four of us, all six of us, really, all four kids, Eric and me, packed into the combine, and just like beginning to like teach them about our world and having cattle and going out and seeing the horses and seeing the cows. And it was just like everything was new and exciting to them, because it was all very different than what they had. But yeah, then it was like the things that we just do with our kids. It was like, okay, now we just do them with all the kids. So yeah, it was camping and like vacation Bible school and all these things. And I remember every time we would bring something up of something we're going to do, the oldest would say, nope, I'm not doing it. And I'm like, well, you don't get to decide that yet because you don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
And so everything was new, and her take on life was just like, nope, it's probably going to be bad. And so we got to like watch her become brave and like to go do something new and try something different. But they were very like I do remember our social worker telling us at one point, like, we could have just as well picked them up and dropped them in the middle of China. Like, that's really how different this is when we were
other than no language barriers.
Right.
Although some days it probably felt like it with the 2-year-olds.
Right.
It probably felt like there was language barriers anyway.
Yeah.